All right. So thank you so much for the keynote. It was very insightful. Right now, we will start with the panel one. So I would like to invite the speakers of the panel one. So panel one, it will be about Bitcoin meets PoS, the future of cross-chain staking. So the first panelist to the stage is Fisher Yu, once again, from Babylon, co-founder and CTO. Also, the second one, Sandeep Nailwal, Polygon founder. Jacob Phillips, Lombard co-founder. Ryan Fang from ANKR, co-founder and COO. Muneeb, Stack co-founder. And Sankar Banerjee, chief protocol economist as a moderator. Yeah, welcome you to the stage.
What a great panel. A panel that needs no introduction. So first off, I would want to kick off things for you guys, give a quick overview of your crypto journey and how Bitcoin fits into your story.
Hello everyone, Fisher here again. So my crypto journey starts with my postdoc research on blockchain security, and since then I have been doing blockchain security research with Professor David Shea from Stanford University. By the end of 2021, David and I and EigenLayer's founder Suiran, we come up with the concept of security sharing. Suiran then go choose Ethereum as the source of security sharing, founded EigenLayer. David and I choose Bitcoin, and we founded Babylon. Yeah, that's our story.
For me, the Bitcoin story is like, back in 2010 when I was still in the college, and apparently I told the person who used to sit next to me in my class that let's mine Bitcoin, like, to get some pocket money. And then after that, 2013, I again looked at Bitcoin, and this time said, okay, let's mine this and all that. And by that time already, the mining requirement had gone so much, like I couldn't mine it on my laptop and all that. And I tried to read a little bit about Bitcoin on the forums and all that, and I was like, this looks like some sort of like, to be honest, like some sort of pyramid scheme or scam, something. So I was like because I didn't go inside it, and then in India at that time there was a lot of like this pyramid scheme. Then in 2016, I again came across, like end of 2015, again came across Bitcoin. I was like, wait, this scam is still alive? What's going on? What am I missing here? Then I read the Bitcoin white paper. I was like, oh, this is big. This is big. And then I think eventually I also thought that this is basically somebody figured out a decentralized network to do payments. What if you could do a little bit complicated custom business logic also on this? And later on, I found about Ethereum, and then I realized that this is it. Like I left everything and came all into crypto.
Sorry, my story or journey actually kind of beginning of 2018, not as early as Sandeep. I read just 20 minutes in the Bitcoin white paper. I kind of read slow, so I never actually finished it. But I kind of immediately fell in love with the concept of a trustless money, right, that's not controlled by anyone, and decided I want to do crypto things. And then I started with my college roommate Chandler, a company, as well as Stanley, a company called ANKR. Today we're one of the, I guess, leading RPC API infant company in the space. And so at the end of last year, I started a company called Tomo Wallet. We are very multi-chain, centric, well, multi-chain view, right? That I think the space has all kinds of new innovation with new chains, new consensus, new capability, faster, better, et cetera, right? But Bitcoin, the asset, I think really could or should, go on all the different chains, with this thinking, I started a wallet called Tomo Wallet, which is on Android, iOS, Telegram, and all the different places. Yeah, that's my quick crypto journey.
And hey everyone, my name is Jacob Phillips, co-founder of Lombard. Before this, I spent 2 years building a purpose protocol on Arbitrum. I was part of a dev studio that did some compound governance work and worked for a couple different DAOs, including the empty set dollar DAO, ESD, if you remember the algo stable from back in the day. And then before that, I spent 3 years at Polychain as a venture investor. And Bitcoin for me was deeply ingrained in everything I sort of did in crypto when I first started and is now. In the middle, I sort of went through this lull where all the exciting stuff was happening in other ecosystems. Bitcoin itself, like there wasn't a lot to do with it. Sure, you hold it, let it sit in your wallet or exchange account, but it doesn't do all that much. This sort of, the renaissance, the revitalization of Bitcoin, I think has brought me back in.
Hey everyone, Muneeb here, founder of Stacks. My Bitcoin journey started in 2013, finishing my PhD. Discovered Bitcoin, I was like crawling the P2P network, just was like poking around. Also was buying Bitcoin on the side. To date this in Bitcoin price terms, Bitcoin was $70. Every time it will go up to 100, I would stop buying. It was like, too expensive. Yeah, so I think one thing led to another. Tried building on Bitcoin L1 directly. Have the scars from that journey. It's not easy to build on Bitcoin L1. At one point, I think some of the stuff we built was doing like 60% of all Bitcoin traffic. Bitcoin core devs were yelling at us that you're spamming the network, just like ordinals are these days. Around 2017, I took a long break from my PhD, came back, finished the PhD. The lessons that we learned from building on L1, it was crystal clear that L1 is never going to scale to a billion users. This is not where you program Bitcoin. This is not where you're going to scale Bitcoin. Bitcoin needs L2s. So we were one of the original Bitcoin projects trying to scale Bitcoin, make it programmable. Stacks started in 2017 along with Lightning. I think we've come a long way since then. I think now Bitcoin L2s are becoming a category. A lot of projects are starting. And that's very, very exciting to see.
Amazing. So self-custodial Bitcoin is a very new concept. A, why should we care? And B, what value fundamentally does Bitcoin bring to the staking world that PoS chains alone cannot offer?
Yeah, I think Sriram and you guys all have established this very clearly that having these large assets like Ethereum and Bitcoin, and if their economic security can be used for spawning up new networks, right? Which initially for them to have a crypto economic security is very, very hard. And if you can piggyback on the crypto economic security provided by Bitcoin or Ethereum validator, you can spin up large mission critical systems which are adequately secured. And like that restaking concept is pretty interesting, and a lot of activity is happening. I think Babylon also we are seeing a lot of activity, and yeah, it's good to see Bitcoin as an asset which is like $1.5 trillion asset, and which was previously almost like sitting on the sidelines. I think what Babylon is doing is bringing that $1.5 trillion into a more active mode where that can be used to do multiple other things. I think it's a game changer, and it needs to be seen how big it can be.
I just wanted to add, Sandeep has a keynote and he has to leave. We thank you for your participation.
Thank
Sandeep,
you. I mean, I have to go to the main event quickly, and it's fine.
Thank you very much.
So I'm really sorry I have to leave early, but yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me. For sure. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mark.
We'll carry on the panel. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, when I attend other events, most of the projects are talking about where do we get new users, where do we get new liquidity. All of them, they are thinking in the PoS world, okay, but they are missing the elephant in the room, right? The crypto world, you think about it, it's a circle. If half of it is PoS world, the other half is the Bitcoin. And actually the Bitcoin users profile is quite different from the PoS ones. And Bitcoin has like over 1 trillion assets sitting there. doing nothing. So while the POS system struggle to find liquidity and users, why not activate Bitcoin to help them to grow and create a more united crypto world? Then, so that's why Babylon tried to do Bitcoin staking, because in order to bring liquidity and users to the second half of the crypto world, there needs to be security. Once things are secure, then people will feel more comfortable doing liquidity and use them. Yeah, so I think Bitcoin staking, at least to the Babylon project, is the starting point of a more united crypto world.
As well, I will try to, let me make this attempt. I'll try to use a somewhat finance way to think about the value of Bitcoin, staking. As before I read the unfinished Bitcoin white paper, I was a finance person, supposed to be a banker and stuff. I actually think, so with the current POS systems, philosophically, it's almost, it's like company shares, right? It's like if you own, call it 40%, 50%, whatever, you kind of get to decide things, right? It's almost like a company's only funded with equity, right? But if you essentially are kind of like staking Bitcoin, which is, obviously a less volatile asset, right? It's like compared to even the largest company stock, let's say Microsoft stock, cash is quote unquote more stable, and that is the sort of base derivation of the value, right? Now, if in the crypto world, the sort of base value is, Bitcoin, so you could kind of almost think of Bitcoin staking to secure POS chains almost like companies, having debt or having loan or having convertible loan essentially, right? Historically, if we look at, companies, how they're funded, how they're kind of like voting or decisions are made, right? It is usually a combination of seniority, in the finance world, right? You have a combination of sort of equity-like things and the debt-like things to make it, better. And for a very long time, all POS chains in the world basically only have a equity-like, financing or equity-like decision-making process and et cetera, right? The first time I hear about the concept of Bitcoin staking from Professor Se, I asked him kindly to let me think, 2 minutes, what the kind of like implication, it could be, to the space. Right? I think, it is the Pandora box. Right? It is really, basically open another whole new avenue, for how POS chains, are being run and how they are being formed and et cetera, et cetera. And I really think that also the multi-chain portion of it, the liquid staking of it, you could use, or at least I try to use using some kind of concepts in finance that resonate, with what Bitcoin staking can bring to the space. And I think that's going to be really the butterfly, effect. And that's why I'm so excited about Babylon. I think from an idea, and it can probably impact the entire space, the entire world.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with what Ryan just said. I think obviously excited about, the sort of innovations in the security market that Babylon's bringing, but even more excited about the ripple effects it'll have on the rest of the space. And I think that, the eigenlayer ecosystem is a great way to look at this. Before the eigenlayer ecosystem, we had liquid staking tokens. Maybe there was some idea of like receipt tokens that people would use in DeFi, but nobody really used them, Everybody continued to use native ETH and USDC and other assets. After the whole eigenlayer boom, every single protocol in the space, every DeFi protocol is thinking about how can I build upon, composable yield-bearing collateral, how can I build on liquid staking tokens, restaking tokens, how can I build on like Aave tokens or something like that. So it sort of started this, it changed the entire fabric of DeFi through the excitement around this infrastructure project. And I think the same thing is happening with Bitcoin. It's kind of like, this is why I'm kind of working on Lombard, is because, the same thing is about to happen with BTC thanks to Babylon. We've had WBTC around, there's CBBTC and some other, kind of assets popping up, But that alone, I don't think is going to be enough to sort of take Bitcoin, uproot ETH's hegemony in DeFi effectively. If you look at ETH and DeFi, or ETH and Bitcoin, and compare their sort of value in DeFi, ETH's a pretty damn good asset. We don't necessarily need to swap over to Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is fundamentally better, more liquid. We could probably have better rates and more efficient collateral if we had Bitcoin. But Bitcoin needs to get to critical mass, and the only way to do that is to have some sort of exogenous shock to the system, and that is the catalyst presented by Babylon. So, I think hopefully very soon everybody will be using Bitcoin and DeFi.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I look at the Bitcoin restaking thing is that staking protocols have this sort of like cold start problem, like a bootstrapping problem, that you have to trust something to know the initial distribution of what the network is, and then you start trusting the validators. And Bitcoin's proof of work, like one elegant thing about it is you don't have to trust anything. You can boot it from start. But if you restake Bitcoin, you actually don't have a cold start problem. Right? So you bootstrap something from nothing using proof of work, and then once you have the capital, you can actually go and use proof of stake that way. So in some ways, it actually solves like a pretty fundamental loophole in a way in proof of stake.
Definitely. I think the key word here is self-custodial Bitcoin staking that really unlocks this huge potential and different use cases, basically. So just taking from that, what new economic models and incentives could come up with this cross-staking between PoS and Bitcoin?
Oh, sorry. I think that for a very long time, I believe, I'm going to try to draw some comparison again. If you think about, US dollar, people trust it and use it because you kind of trust the US government, trust the US military and security, et cetera, right? A lot of people candidly don't trust some of their countries' currency, right? Actually, vast majority of countries, people don't even really trust their own currencies, all kind of shit, other than some of the main ones. It really is mirroring to some extent, what is kind of happening, in the crypto space. Right? I think that I actually hold this opinion quite strongly, where I think the true global recognition, of value should always be, Bitcoin, because it has a almost impossible to overcome amount of sunk cost almost, right? Like so much energy and things, and so much of the capital investment almost, right, already went into it. Right? It's almost just like human, development. The reason, the reason the United States is the most trusted currency is so much things has already gone into it, and there's so much infrastructure and stuff already built up, the military, et cetera, right? Bitcoin is obviously no doubt the most secure thing, right? So I think Babylon really make all the other companies or all the other chains, have the ability to have that connection essentially, with the most secure and most globally recognized, value, right? And I think that was simply not done, before. Like when I first entered the space in 2018, which wasn't too early, right? At the time, everybody was talking about interoperability this, interoperability that, right? These concepts, were throwing around, for a very long time, and a lot of people talked about Bitcoin interoperability, and for many years, there just isn't a very clean and elegant way, other than a simple multisig, to kind of like make it happen, right? And I feel that with Babylon, we finally have the answer, and it's almost like there is finally a central bank situation set up, for the Bitcoin ecosystem. So very exciting.
Yeah, the one place my mind goes here with this question is that, with the introduction of Bitcoin staking and all of the ripple effects that come from it, this quadruples down on Bitcoin as money. Like the moneyness of Bitcoin, I think, becomes much more substantial once people start using it for additional things. Staking kind of being the most primitive form of on-chain finance, and then soon it becomes, lending in a lending protocol. Then maybe it's trading on a DEX, using as collateral in a perps exchange. This sort of kickstarts the flywheel for Bitcoin to do this. If you look back, last cycle, there kind of started this meme that like ETH is money. And I think that there's still, even in my mind, I think there's still some belief that that could become the case. Bitcoin doesn't have to be the only money, but I think certainly the introduction of Bitcoin into all of the use cases that made ETH money or some of these other assets money, I think starts to challenge that quite significantly. So we're sort of back to the original paradigm of Bitcoin being this, only does one thing really, really well, and it's be a store of value asset with very limited use cases at the base layer, everything else at higher layers, and all these other assets kind of have to do something else.
Yeah, so I think the mental model that I have is like I always separate Bitcoin the asset from Bitcoin the rails. And I think Bitcoin L1 rails are old, clunky, right? You can't program it over there. And what we're seeing actually across the board through like a lot of different projects that are launching or apps that people are building, they're really taking Bitcoin to different rails. Like even if you look at what Coinbase is doing, like they just brought Bitcoin to base. There's a developer community there. And I think the more we see that, the more, sort of like the stuff that you're hearing about Bitcoin just being used as money on chain. And I think that's probably the largest thing. We've heard about it for so many years, but I think it's like actually finally happened.
Yeah, so I'd like to address this question from a more technological point of view. So, I think Bitcoin staking shows that Bitcoin has potential. We proved that Bitcoin has potential. Before Bitcoin staking, before BitVM, everyone believes Bitcoin has nothing to do, but we proved that Bitcoin is useful, so that this will attract more developers, users, like VCs or validators to actually come to the Bitcoin ecosystem and build it together, because we show that at least other side of the tunnel, there is light and there is hope. And we already make a very concrete first step towards it.
Amazing. So this all sounds like a very happy story, but there is always a vulnerability. Now, when we look at Bitcoin staking, we hear all the pros. Now, what are the vulnerabilities when we look at cross-chain staking, now that we are integrating these two separated islands, Bitcoin and the PoS network? Muneeb, maybe we can start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think I'll start, and I also need to follow Sandeep's footsteps, so that I'm also speaking at the main event soon. So I might need to head out. I would say, like, in many ways, this is the beginning, right? There's a lot of work to be done. Like Ethereum deserves a lot of credit for the last 5-6 years of actually building stuff and going through like all the hacks and the things that only shows up when you build real systems. So I think in the Bitcoin world right now, there's a lot of optimism, a lot of projects, but when the rubber meets the road and we're going to start discovering, all types of issues that are going to come up, because the Bitcoin ecosystem is actually less mature right now. Like I'll just give you an example. Like if you go to a lot of audit firms, they know Solidity, they know like the ETH environments a lot better than Bitcoin, right? So people are only starting to realize what kind of dev tools they would need to audit, what kind of like, languages they would need to like get comfortable with, what type of like new types of like attack vectors are there. So it will take a while for this ecosystem to mature. There's a ton of work to be done. But that's what the developers are here for.
Yeah, maybe I can hop in next. The biggest vulnerability that comes to mind here is, as we try to build things on Bitcoin, the only way to do it right now is to introduce additional trust assumptions. And I think, to the point Muneeb was just making, I think Bitcoin's still very kind of early in their cultural understanding of like what are the standards that we're okay with? What is good trust? Kind of a cool part about Bitcoin is we're actually seeing a lot of projects building that expose the full trust spectrum. So everything from very centralized DeFi companies to like very decentralized Bitcoin DeFi companies who are trying to build everything on chain. So it is kind of, it is a little bit different from the ETH ecosystem where everything tries to be like fully decentralized. And if you're not fully decentralized, you have Chris Black and all these other people kind of yelling at you on Twitter. But I actually think that like Bitcoin needs that. Bitcoin needs some of those people in the ecosystem to stand up and say, this is not how we're going to do it. Like this is a house of cards. This is a worse version of WBTC. And I don't think there's enough voices in the community at the moment. We're building all of these, like, we really don't need 100 different multi-sigs to secure Bitcoin. We need maybe a couple, like, really robust multi-sigs until we have more expressivity at the base layer. And the quicker that we accelerate towards that vision, I think the better this is going to end up. Because one thing I fear is that all of these Bitcoin whales who have finally gotten comfortable doing just a small piece of DeFi, staking through Babylon, are going to get burnt so badly through Bitcoin DeFi that it's going to set us back a long, long time.
Yeah, I would like to answer with a kind of like lame answer. I think just like everything in the world, it's a spectrum, 0 to 1, right? I think anything that try to be extremely, completely, unreasonably decentralized or unreasonably trustless is just not gonna work, right? Because realistically, the technology goes up, like spinning goes up, not necessarily directly go up, right? So I think anything that try to do that, I don't think will be successful. And anything that's like on the zero end, well, you might as well use your old Web2 database, right? So that also clearly wouldn't work, right? So I think the answer, of security and decentralization and trustlessness, I think is probably somewhere, in the middle, right? I think there's a lot of different companies, trying to come up with a lot of different solutions, right? The way I think about it, it is almost, consumers' interview to these companies. Well, these companies are interviewing, the interviewer are the consumers, right? You need to come up with solutions that make consumer feel, comfortable, want to use, build trust, right? Just like, a job interview, right? I think that I think the candidate that get the job usually are not a candidate that only have one skill that is extremely extreme, right? Usually is something, that is balanced, right? That is a combination, realistically, of decentralization as well as sort of the fast iteration and centralization, right? I actually care the most about one word, which is trustlessness. I think this word isn't used that much. I think people use decentralization more than trustless. I actually personally think trustless is more important because realistically, we live in a free market, well, relatively free market. In blockchain, I believe it's more free than some other market. It is very likely the wealth become concentrated, and it is just the reality, right? And company is going to have their cap table and et cetera, right? So, but the transparency is actually what's the more important thing, right? It's about, sure, that guy have 20% of the coin, but can this network or like easily be manipulated by this person, or at least we should know, like, this guy at least need to get to like 51% to manipulate this network, right? The transparency and the immutableness, the trustlessness, I think that's something, in my opinion, should obviously be prioritized, right? The mechanism should be open, should be clear, should be audited, should be given to people, right? But I think in the end, it is every company's job, to hopefully do well in the interview.
Should I talk about the issues of with Bitcoin staking? Is it a conflict of
like.
interest?
Yes?
Okay, maybe I'll just take this opportunity to demystify some misconceptions about Bitcoin staking. Right, some PoS systems and their validators may concern that Bitcoin staking will dilute their staking reward. No, that's not the case. You can also be the Bitcoin staking financial providers and get that portion of the staking reward. And Bitcoin staking will help the PoS systems to alleviate their high inflation pressure, which will be much better for the long-term sustainability of the proof of stake system. Another common misconception is that Bitcoin staking will interference the PoS sovereignty, will hijack the governance, and the PoS world will be overtaken by Bitcoin maxis. No, that's not the case. Bitcoin staking security is on top of the existing consensus of the proof of stake systems, so that the governance is still 100% controlled by the native token holders. So Bitcoin staking preserves the sovereignty of the proof of stake system.
Amazing. Just a quick wrap-up fun question. If you had to give Bitcoin a PoS superpower for a day, what would it be and why?
I don't quite know where to go with this one, because if it's only for a day, it goes away right away.
I actually think it's a very hard question.
Yeah.
I think the answer probably is you know, there's Babylon. It kind of already almost making that a reality already. I think that it is actually because Bitcoin itself is not POS that's making it, you know, all the better, right? I mean, this is almost a trick question, right? The Bitcoin itself actually should not be POS, in my opinion, right? Bitcoin itself. Oh well, you know what? I do actually think this is a trick question. So here's my very quick, you know, take. Again, I'm going to try to draw some analogy. You know, in the 70s, the United States quit the Bretton Woods system, right? So that I mean, a long time ago, countries like they pay each other gold, essentially, right? And I mean, there's like a lot of sad history, you know, in the war settlement and et cetera, in the history of human being. That was country to country. It is using gold, right? But for various political reasons, you know, dollar become the thing, right? A big reason, in my opinion, was because technology wasn't there. There wasn't a tethered gold, you know, for a very long time. Tethered gold was not used, or like, you know, a digital gold was not used or not created, you know, and there isn't like one place that can say or claim, okay, this is the tethered gold thing that people should all use, right, on whatever network. It doesn't exist, right? So Bitcoin already is that, but unfortunately, the Bitcoin network itself, you know, given its security need, you know, is kind of like slow, clunky, and have all kinds of stuff. It's almost have to be, you know, minimalist, right? It has to be, in my opinion, it actually has to be, you know, POW. It has to be, you know, sort of in mastery trust. Has to be this a lot of the sunk cost, you know, because that is also equivalent to some extent, you know, to security, right? So I think it is exactly the space does not need, in my opinion, Bitcoin staking. Bitcoin native staking, it actually exactly need Babylon, you know, to make all the other things to utilize Bitcoin.
Let's ask our dynamic CTO, what superpower would you give to the POS, a POS superpower to Bitcoin?
To Bitcoin, okay. If in that case, I will allocate the 1 day of POS power to the year of 2029, where Bitcoin just started, so that Bitcoin will be proof of stake for 1 day, and then I will mount the long-range history revision attack to the Bitcoin chain, so that I will become Nakamoto. Yeah, because so POS, just for the audience information, POS system has an inherent problem called long-range history revision attack, where the very old history of a POS chain can be easily be revised. And by the way, Bitcoin staking and Bitcoin and other protocols of Babylon can solve that problem.
Yeah, and Fisher, I guess even if you didn't go back and attack the Bitcoin network to get to proof of stake, just having proof of stake live at that point, perhaps enacts a bit of a culture shift within the Bitcoin community, right? Maybe that's the one thing that would benefit from this if we had like a trustless bridge for a day, or more expressivity at the base layer for a day, or proof of stake for a day. Maybe that would start to make the Bitcoin community change their mind a lot faster. But even then, I think it's been pretty impressive. I mean, just in the past 12 months, you've seen the Bitcoin community, flip almost 180 in terms of leaning more in favor of more expressivity through OpCat and other solutions. So at least we're on the right path right now.
Yeah, I actually think I was right. This was a trick question, you know. Right.
Thank you so much for the panel. It was amazing.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks so much, Lini.
Thanks.